Okay, now let's look at number 5. Number 5 is very similar to number 4, so I basically kept the language the same, except there is one significant difference, and that is here where it says grants an undivided 1/4 interest in the oil and gas lease. In question 5, that reads grants an undivided 1/4 interest in my interest. So that's a 1/4 interest. What's going on here? It's a 1/4 interest in my interest. Now you remember in the conveyance webinar we talked about if it says of, it means to multiply. If it's out of or from, you subtract. Well, I'm going to add another one here, and that is that it says 1/4 interest in my interest. That is just the same as saying 1/4 interest of my interest. So in that case, we're going to have to multiply. So how does this work? Well, what happens is it's going to be if A is granting an undivided 1/4 interest in oil and gas in, on, and under, just like we said before, that's going to be a mineral interest. That's not produced and saved, which would make it a royalty interest. So it says in, on, and under. So what are the interests of the parties? A owns a mineral interest, and B is going to own a mineral interest. So let's look at what that interest is. If A has a 50% or 1/2 undivided 1/2 mineral interest, and she conveys to B 1/4 interest in or of my interest. So she's going to have to say 1/2 of my interest times 1/4. So that's what she is conveying to B. An undivided 50% interest conveying a 1/4 interest of my interest. So in that case, it's going to be, when we're doing multiplying fractions, we just multiply straight across. We don't have to do anything with the lowest common denominator. So 2 times 4 is 8. 1 times 1 is 8. 1, I'm sorry. So A is going to own, B is going to own this 1/8 mineral interest. Okay, and that leaves A with the remaining 3/4 interest. So it's going to be 1/2 undivided 50% interest times 3/4. Once again, we're just going to multiply straight across. 4 times 2 is 8, and 3 times 1 is 3. So these are mineral interest owners. So B is going to get this 1/8, 1/4 in her 1/2, and A is going to get a 3/8 mineral interest. The remaining 3/4 of her 1/2 interest. Now the question is, what if the document was entitled Royalty Deed across the top? Royalty Deed across the top. Well, if you looked at the webinar, the assignments webinar, you will see that you cannot go simply by what the deed is entitled. You have to delve deep into the deed and find out the actual language. So even if they put royalty deed at the top of this transfer or the top of this deed, that wouldn't change what it was. It would create a cloud on title because it says royalty and the language is in, on, and under. But that is a rebuttable presumption, and we can easily handle that cloud on title. And so they're saying if it said royalty deed, would that convert this to a conveyance of a non-participating royalty interest? And the answer is no, it absolutely would not. You've got to look at that language. If it said 1/4 interest of my 50% interest produced and saved, then we would have a royalty deed and our answer would be different. But for this purposes, A has a 3/8 mineral interest, B has a 1/8 mineral interest, and this makes no difference how it's styled and does not convert the interest to a non-participating royalty interest. So be careful if it says, this is a very important trap for the unwary. If it says 1/4 interest in the oil and gas in and under, that is 25% of the 50%. I'm sorry, if it says 1/4 interest in the oil and gas in, on, and under, that means one party's getting 1/4 interest and the other party has the other 3/4 interest. If it says 1/4 interest in my interest, then in that case, it's going to be 1/2 of 1/4, leaving the person that conveyed it with 1/2 of 3/4. So be very aware, are we saying just a 1/4 interest, or are we saying a 1/4 interest in my interest, or a 1/4 interest of my interest? Very important distinction. Okay, and next we'll cover number 6.